All right. Today's video is going to be about Afghanistan and what's been going on over there over these past couple weeks to couple months. The reason I've been holding off on making this video is because we'll get into it, but there was a deadline set at the end of this month. I wanted to wait to see all that happens first. But this video is going to be intended to just briefly catch everybody up who maybe doesn't know everything that's going on. I'll go through some of the more important details of the timeline of events of this whole Afghanistan withdrawal. And then at the end, I'll kind of throw in my 2 cents. Now, I do want to say, I don't like Monday morning quarterbacking anything. However, there are exceptions, and those exceptions usually come when things are done so wrong with arrogance and stupidity, and usually blame is cast on others, that it's perfectly reasonable, and not only reasonable, but it's practically demanded of people to speak up and call out the bullshit. Say, hey, this is where such and such went wrong, and this is why, and this is whose fault it was. This is who needs to be accountable so this kind of thing doesn't happen again. As citizens, as taxpayers, you should be, as voters, you should be speaking up. Don't let people try to tell you, like they try to tell me, you weren't in the arena, you were sitting on the sidelines, you don't have all the information. Dude, I don't have to have all the information. The wrongs during the Afghanistan withdrawal were so blatantly obvious that anyone not even that knowledgeable about it can say, okay, that's a dumb decision. Why would you do that? And we're going to go over some of those things right now. Okay, so I'm not going to take you all the way back to 2001 when we first went into Afghanistan. We're just going to go as far back as to Obama's presidency when he installed Ashraf Ghani as the president of Afghanistan in 2014. Now, of course, Ghani is a political left-wing professor who taught anthropology at Johns Hopkins. And we'll get back to him in a second because he does play a role in this. All right, so fast forward to February of 2020, and Trump signs the peace deal, the Doha agreement, with the Taliban to withdraw all Western military and support personnel from Afghanistan by May 1st, 2021. And that's only if the Taliban respects their side of the treaty. That is to not attack the U.S. or its allies. And surprise, surprise, the Taliban didn't exactly hold up to their end of the agreement. And of course, as we all know, Biden did not withdraw our troops by May 1st, 2021. And so he moved the deadline to September 11th. In response, the Taliban went on the offensive and decided to take over major regions of Afghanistan, pushing back the Afghan forces in record time. All of this despite Biden telling us just a couple months beforehand that this would never happen. This, to quote him, would not turn into another Saigon. But when it did happen, and he saw how serious the Taliban was and how pathetic the Afghan army was, he moved the date up from September 11th to August 31st and began rushing our troops out of the country. But how rushed? Well, on July 2nd, Bagram Air Base was evacuated overnight, and nobody told the Afghani commander it was happening until 2 hours after we left. And by that time, the place had already been ransacked. Here are some of the things these morons in office left behind and gifted to our enemies. 358,000 assault rifles. Of course, Democrats will give terrorists automatic weapons, but want to take away our semi-automatics. 64,000 machine guns, 22,000 Humvees, hundreds of tanks, thousands of trucks, 110 helicopters, and fixed-wing aircraft. Oh, and not to mention 16,000 night vision devices, so these angry cave people can fight us fairly at night in the future with our own stuff. And boy, are they flaunting the new toys we gave them, showing the world how dumb we are. They got the Blackhawks flying. Seems like they're enjoying the 21st century tech. We even taught them proper trigger discipline. Biden tried to tell us that military and intelligence leaders told him that there was no need to hang on to Bagram Airfield, despite its advantageous location not too far from the city of Kabul. It's Kabul's airport and its single runway located deep in a city that Biden's team wanted to keep open instead. By this point, the Taliban agreed to Biden's August 31st deadline, and they even offered to stay out of Kabul and let the Americans control the city. But Biden said, no thank you, come on in. That was the last time Biden would tell the Taliban anything. The terrorists were now the ones in charge. They wouldn't even renegotiate a new timeline to allow the U.S. more time to get their people out. Of course, by this time, President Ghani had already jumped ship, leaving his vice president behind to go down with it instead. Because, like all liberal professors, he likes to get paid to talk but has no spine. His children are no different than he is. living their posh lifestyles here in the States and demanding our country take in as many Afghan refugees as possible. And we are. We've even evacuated way more Afghanis than Americans from Kabul. We're even building houses for them, though many haven't been properly vetted. How many homeless veterans do we have again? 38,000? Okay, got it. I know where the priority lies. Anyway, we all saw the videos of people in Kabul holding onto the outside of military aircraft and falling to their death in their desperate attempts to escape the Taliban. Given the green light by the Biden administration, the Taliban came right into the city and surrounded the airport we were trying to evacuate American citizens from. The Taliban promptly began beating Afghani and American citizens right there on the streets, executing those who dared disobey Sharia law, especially Afghan interpreters and their families who they hunted down. The Biden administration even handed over a hit list of American names, so these terrorists can keep an eye out for them. While the remaining American troops at the airport provided security, along with the Taliban, who the American government allegedly paid somehow, there is no way they did this for free, French and British troops were the ones going beyond the airport gates to rescue Americans behind enemy lines. Ultimately, Biden's trust in the terrorist organization, known as the Taliban, proved derp when they failed to prevent, or more likely straight up allowed, ISIS-K suicide bombers to enter multiple gates outside the airport and killed 13 U.S. service members, along with hundreds of Afghans. By the way, if you aren't aware, the rise of ISIS on the world stage is thanks to Obama and Hillary Clinton's failed foreign policy in Syria. Because of these attacks, Biden went on camera with a straight face, albeit a tired and confused one, and said, "We will not forget and we will not forgive." Then proceeded to drone strike the ISIS-K member responsible for planning the bombings. Except he killed 10 family members, including children. It's hard to believe they fouled that one up after pulling all their human intelligence on the ground out of the region. By midnight on August 30th, the last remaining military transport plane left Kabul, as well as 100 American citizens behind. But that's what Biden's people will tell you at least. However, nonprofits who took the initiative to fly people out of there are claiming that it's most likely thousands of American citizens who are left stranded. And yes, Jen Psaki, stranded is the right word for it. We've spoke about two-sided justice in my videos before, but this is just another glaring example of how the left hates the truth and will do anything or say anything they can to avoid it for their own authoritarian agenda. They tried to impeach Trump for colluding with Russia in the 2016 election when it turns out they were the ones colluding with foreign spies to undermine our democracy. Our democratic republic. They tried to impeach Trump over a fake phone call transcript that they made up. And of course, they tried to impeach Trump over January 6th when he said, quote, "Peacefully make your voices heard." The incident where the one person that was murdered was an unarmed Trump supporter. But of course, now that Joe Biden and his ilk have directly caused the deaths of more than a dozen U.S. troops, as well as hundreds, if not thousands, of Afghanis due to their incompetence and their failure to lead and their ineptitude to get even one thing right, and then lie about it, there is not one cry from the left to remove him from office or any of his friends. Nobody has even resigned, let alone given an apology. Yet they disciplined Marine Lieutenant Colonel Stuart Scheller for publicly asking for accountability. And that shouldn't surprise you. They also fired a Space Force commander months ago who warned of the spread of Marxism in the military. Those in power care so much about doing what's right that Biden was caught looking at his watch while the flag-draped caskets of our 13 troops passed in front of him, like he was inconvenienced. His administration and military intelligence officials under his command were so busy on the lookout for white rage here within our own borders that they forgot to collect any useful intelligence on terrorism in the Middle East. America is now a joke to the rest of the world thanks to the stupidity and weakness now occupying the White House. The USA can no longer be trusted and therefore is no longer trusted. All because those in power are nothing but feckless fools. A reporter for the New York Post recently called out the White House press secretary, Jen Psaki, and asked her how Americans can trust them to tell the truth if they'll lie about the smallest issues, like how it has been exposed through emails that Biden's German Shepherd, Major, bit more than a dozen people since Joe became president. Not just one person, which is what Psaki reported to the press months ago. So why should we trust them when they try to tell us that, no, they didn't leave behind military working dogs in Afghanistan? If the American citizens that they left behind aren't a priority to them, then why would the dogs that served our country be a priority to them? Anyone who trusts those in power, or worse, tries to defend them, are sheep in every way. And that's not an ad hominem because I already laid out my argument. The left lies about everything. It's who they are. Liars. It's what they do. If you still believe anything they have to say, you're lost. You are not a critical thinker with a mind of your own. So please do the world a favor and consider not voting in the next election. Less than a year into this president's term, we already have mass casualties, a world in chaos, and Islamic terrorism is a threat once again. And the worst part about all this is that it didn't have to be this way.